Hello, my lovely learners. Today's story takes us back to life before the internet. You'll hear real, simple British English from everyday life. So get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. In the summer of 1980, in a small town in England called Willowbrook, life moved at a slower pace. There were no mobile phones buzzing in pockets, no endless streams of emails, and certainly no social media to scroll through. People relied on face-to-face chats, letters in the post, and the occasional phone call on a landline that everyone in the house shared. The town was full of ordinary folks going about their days, each with their own routines shaped by the world without the web. Take Mr. Harold Jenkins, for example. He was a 45-year-old postman who started his day at dawn. Harold cycled through the quiet streets, delivering letters and parcels. Back then, if you wanted to hear from a friend or family member far away, you wrote a letter by hand. Harold remembered how exciting it was to drop off a thick envelope from abroad, perhaps from a relative in Australia. "It's like Christmas every time," he'd say to his wife over breakfast. After his rounds, he'd stop at the local library to pick up a newspaper. The Daily Mirror, or the Times, was how people got their news. No instant updates. You waited for the morning edition to learn about the latest football scores or political events. Across town, young Sarah Thompson, a 16-year-old schoolgirl, was getting ready for her day. Sarah loved music, but in 1980, that meant saving up pocket money for vinyl records or cassette tapes. She had a Walkman, a new gadget that let her listen to her favourite bands like The Clash or Blondie while walking to school. Without the internet, discovering new songs came from radio shows on BBC Radio 1 or tips from friends. "Have you heard this one?" her mate Lisa would ask, passing a tape over the school fence. After classes, Sarah and her friends would meet at the park. They'd chat about homework, boys, or the latest episode of Top of the Pops on the telly. No texting. If you wanted to make plans, you arranged them in person or called from home, hoping no one else was using the phone. Meanwhile, at the local factory, Tom Harris, a 32-year-old mechanic, spent his shifts fixing cars. Work was straightforward, no computers to diagnose problems, just tools and experience. During lunch breaks, the lads would gather around a radio for the cricket scores or share stories from the weekend. Tom was planning a holiday to Spain with his girlfriend, Emily. Booking it meant visiting the travel agent on the high street. They'd flip through brochures, pick a hotel from glossy photos, and pay with a cheque. "Fancy that beach in Costa Brava?" Emily would say, pointing at a picture. No online reviews. You trusted the agent's word or recommendations from neighbours. Evenings in Willowbrook brought families together. The Wilson family, Mum, Dad, and their 2 kids, Ben and Katie, sat down for dinner without distractions. Dad, a teacher, would read from a book after the meal, or they'd play board games like Monopoly. Television was the main entertainment, with only 4 channels: BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4 just starting up. Everyone watched the same shows at the same time, like Dallas or Doctor Who. If you missed an episode, tough luck, no catch-up services. Ben, aged 10, loved drawing maps from an atlas for his school project on world capitals. Research meant pulling books off shelves at the library, not typing into a search bar. Not everything was easy without the internet. When Mrs. Eleanor Price, a 60-year-old widow, needed a recipe for shepherd's pie, she dug out her old cookbook or asked a friend over the garden fence. Shopping was done in person at the market or supermarket, no online orders. You carried your bags home on the bus. If you wanted to find a job, you scanned the classifieds in the paper or popped into the job centre. Eleanor volunteered at the community centre, where people gathered for bingo nights or knitting clubs. Social life happened in real places: the pub, the church hall, or the village green. One weekend, the town held its annual fair. Stalls sold homemade jams, second-hand books, and candy floss. Kids like Ben raced in sack races, while adults chatted over pints of ale. Without cameras on phones, people brought actual cameras with film that you'd develop at the chemist a week later. Surprises came when you picked up the photos, some blurry, some perfect. That was the charm. In 1980, connections felt more personal. Arguments weren't typed out in comments sections. They happened over a cup of tea. News spread through word of mouth or the evening bulletin on the radio. Loneliness could creep in if you lived far from family, but communities were tighter. People like Harold, Sarah, Tom, and Eleanor navigated life with patience and resourcefulness. They didn't know what was coming, the digital revolution just around the corner. For now, the world was analog, and that was just fine. As the sun set over Willowbrook, lights flickered on in houses. Families wound down with a book or a chat. No late-night scrolling. Bedtime came naturally. Life before the internet wasn't perfect, but it had a rhythm all its own, one built on real interactions, waiting, and simple joys. Folks. Folks means people, in a friendly and informal way. It's often used to talk about ordinary people, neighbours, or family members. Example: the town was full of ordinary folks living simple lives. Dawn. Dawn is the very early time in the morning when night turns into day and the sun begins to rise. It's common in stories and descriptions. Example: he left the house at dawn before anyone else was awake. Straightforward. If something is straightforward, it is simple, clear, and not complicated. There are no hidden problems or extra difficulty. Example: the work was straightforward and easy to understand. Diagnose. To diagnose means to identify a problem by carefully examining it. It's used in medicine, mechanics, and technical situations. Example: without computers, He had to diagnose the problem by experience. Tough luck. Tough luck is an informal expression meaning bad luck, especially when nothing can be changed. It can sound neutral or slightly sympathetic. Example: if you missed the episode, tough luck there was no replay. Dug out. Dug out means to find something old that was stored away or forgotten. It's often used with objects like books, clothes, or photos. Example: she dug out her old cookbook from the cupboard. Volunteered. To volunteer means to offer your time or help without being paid. It often relates to community or social work. Example: she volunteered at the community centre every weekend. Candy floss. Candy floss is a sweet made from spun sugar, usually sold at fairs. In American English, it's called cotton candy. Example: children bought candy floss at the annual fair. Around the corner. Around the corner means very near, either in distance or in time. It's often used metaphorically. Example: change was just around the corner. Knitting. Knitting is the activity of making clothes using wool and needles. It's often linked with calm, social, or traditional settings. Example: they met weekly for knitting and conversation. Before we finish, here are a few culture notes to help you understand life in Britain before the internet and why everyday moments in the story mattered. Shared experiences. In Britain, in the 1980 seconds, many everyday experiences were shared rather than individual. With only a few television channels available, people often watched the same programs at the same time. If someone missed an episode, they genuinely missed out because there was no way to watch it later. This meant that conversations the next day often revolved around the same shows, helping people feel connected through common moments. Patience as a way of life. Life before the internet required patience, and this was widely accepted as normal. Letters took time to arrive, photographs were developed days or even weeks later, and news was something people waited for rather than constantly checked. This slower pace shaped daily life and created a rhythm in which waiting was not frustrating, but simply part of how things worked. Face-to-face community. Social life in the 1980 seconds happened mainly in real, physical places. People met and talked in the local pub, the community centre, the church hall, or on the village green. Friendships, disagreements, and support were all built through face-to-face contact. Community was something people experienced directly, not something that existed on a screen. Well done, everyone! I hope you enjoyed this story and its calm, human rhythm. Keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next story.